Good morning, everybody. I'm going to call to order the January 19th of 2021, the first meeting of the Carroll County Planning and Zoning Commission. Can we establish a quorum, please?
Good morning. Ms. Cheatwood?
Here.
Mr. Hoff?
Here.
Mr. Canale?
Here.
Mr. Wathers?
Here.
Mr. Soyson?
Here.
Ms. Kirkner?
Here.
Mr. Gosnell? Commissioner Boucher?
Here.
Secretary Eisenberg?
Here.
Ms. Chair, please let the record reflect that 7 members are present and we do have a quorum.
Thank you. And let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, any changes to our agenda that we have?
No, there are no changes to the agenda. It's as posted.
I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have the December 15th, 2020 meetings. Any edits anybody has?
I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on to item number 6, our commission member reports. I do not have anything to report today. Commissioner, both Commissioner, you would like to speak?
Let me start off and give the warm hand off to Commissioner Boucher. As I share with you, I think last meeting, the commissioners went through the boards of commissions across the county and determined the changes that were going to be made starting in this calendar year. As you probably know, one change is that I'm now president of the board, which takes a little bit of me away from other things. Plus, I've been with you for 2 years, and you need a change of scenery, in my humble opinion. What I want to share, though, is, and just take a moment saying thank you. One, in the education process, the listen, learn, lead, I tried real hard to listen and learn from you. And I think we have a great cross-section for our planning commission. I said that from day one. We added a couple of folks during my tenure. I think the addition that will be coming on is going to be a strong and good addition for you. In the military, we have the 6 Ps. Prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. And I believe we did that in making our decisions, as a board of commissioners, not recommendations, but decisions. You provided the recommendations to us along with the planning commission during the rezoning process of the 28 properties. If you watched or read or listened to, you'll see that we did not take carte blanche in your recommendations. We had our own conversations and discussions and made the best decisions I believe we made with the information we had from you, from the community, and from our planning department. So for you and for the community to understand, we don't just sit back and take what you say for granted and say, that's it. No, it's not designed that way. But we could not have made the decisions without the effort that you put into it. So I really appreciate that. Commissioner Boucher, the only guidance from me to him has been the listen, learn approach, and advocate for common sense at all times. And then taking that information from you and bringing it back to us, because as you know, as commissioners, we don't all sit on these meetings. So we have the reliance on our fellow commissioners to bring back information from the boards and commissions to us, either in open session or in, you know, communications with us. So with that, although I'm not, you know, this ain't a eulogy of any sorts, and I ain't going away forever, and I am always available to you. Is there any thoughts, comments, besides the wonderful job I did and appreciation from Mr. Huff to me, as always, but anything? And I can hand it over to Commissioner Boucher. Go for it.
I just wanted to say thank you to Commissioner Rothstein. I'm sorry, Commissioner Boucher. Thank you for your service on this commission, and we really appreciate all of your insight and efforts. And I'll speak for staff too. Thank you for your support as we move through the comprehensive rezoning process and all our other planning processes. So thank you.
Eisenberg, thanks for those comments. I didn't want Commissioner Rothstein hung there with no comments from y'all, so thank you very much. Well, I'd like to start out by stating, dear Honorable Planning and Zoning Commission members, after having read the memorandum supplied to me by the county's attorney's office regarding commissioners serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission, I will state the following. I am a Carroll County Commissioner elected by my constituents and sworn to uphold the United States Constitution under the principles of separation of power. In consideration thereof, commissioners are asked to appoint members to the Planning and Zoning Commission, set on said commission with members they have appointed, cast votes on the commission in review of zoning ordinances they have previously created in their capacity as commissioners, and appointed members to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which hears appeals on the votes made by the commissioner serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I've never seen a more incestuous and convoluted structure of public responsibility laden with the potential for corruption and abuse in my life. It defies both my moral principles and political science intellect concerning the most sacred of constitutional tenets, separation of power to prevent the abuse of public trust. As a member of the county's governing body, I cannot, in good consciousness, create zoning ordinances, preside over their enforcement alongside members the governing body has appointed, and cast votes that will potentially be reviewed and appealed by individuals the governing body has also appointed. Therefore, since no previous commissioner has ever possessed the political science intelligence or scruples to call out what I blatantly perceive as the obvious, I officially recuse myself from any and all hearings before the Carroll County Planning and Zoning Commission in full compliance with the amended Administrative Rules of Procedure and Operation of the Carroll County Planning and Zoning Commission, Section 3, subsection voting 3.9A. In closing, I believe the members of this commission are undercompensated, and I am requesting the Budget Office research a possible increase in pay by reviewing other jurisdictions and the annual amount of time your services demand of you. Thank you for your time and have a splendid day.
Thank you, Commissioner, both commissioners, for your input. Any of the other commission members like to make any comments?
I'd like to make a few comments. It seems I got a slight reprieve. I thought my last meeting was in December, but this will be my last meeting for sure. So again, I wanted to thank everyone on the board of commissioners. They've supported this planning commission most of the time, which I'm happy to see. And I loved working with all of the commission members. And I'm sure that my replacement, Peter, I'm not sure what his last name was. Anyhow, I hope he will sit and learn because there's a lot of institutional knowledge here. So again, thanks. It was great working with you.
We are all going to miss you. So.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I think it's nice to see you in the new year. I thought, yeah, 2021 is looking doing a little better. So, would anybody like to respond?
Hey, Richard,
just gonna
just,
miss you.
again, thank you. All the work that you've done, you know, and again, the education process was very important, especially for me. In the first years, I'm continually always being educated, but appreciate your dedication in looking at every decision by its own merit. And that was very important as we move forward. So thanks.
I'll incorporate what I said last time, but Richard, we're going to miss you. Personally, professionally, going to miss you. Really will. Don't be a stranger.
Yes, ditto.
Okay, we'll move on to our item number 8, the FY 2022 preliminary CIP. Mr. Zaleski.
No, too soon. We've had to administrative report.
I'm trying to get the first meeting of the year over with. Sorry.
It's a short one too. It's a short one too.
Okay. Let's move on to item number 7, the administrative report, Secretary Eisenberg.
All right. Well, again, Happy New Year, everyone. Happy 2021. Hopefully, better things are to come this year. And again, I want to thank Commission Member Richard Soyson for your service on this commission. It has been truly a pleasure working with you over these last several years, and appreciate all of your insight and input. And when you were chair, I appreciated us working together. So you're going to be greatly missed on this commission. I'm not sure if Commissioner Boucher is still with us, but I want to welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I look forward to meeting with him so we can discuss all the wonderful projects that for the upcoming year of 2021. So with that, the comp rezoning, as Commissioner Rothstein said, were adopted on Thursday, January 14th. We had, I'm going to drop the number of maps. We had many maps that were changed for the comprehensive rezoning. So we had 18 properties out of the 28 requests that the zoning changed to the request from the applicant. Many of these were in line, and they were part of the implementation of the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan and the 2018 Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan. This information is on our planning website for the comp rezoning, telling everyone what the final votes were, the ordinance, and the notice of adoption, and the official zoning maps will be posted this week. And the official zoning is effective immediately because the hearing was so long ago. Our code states 10 days after the public hearing. Well, the public hearing was in December, so after this adoption, these maps are immediately affect the zoning change. So are there any questions about any particular property? Do you want me to run through the list of properties that ended up being approved?
Linda, and we don't have to do it today, but maybe at our evening meeting, you could just review, I know you have a chart online, but just kind of review, the chart with us, and particularly where there were changes from what our recommendation was and what the commissioners ended up doing and what the thought process was behind some of those differences, just to kind of educate us as a commission so we can better understand what the thinking was.
Gotcha. Okay, absolutely. We'll be happy to do that. One property, I will let you know, the Beatty Farm or Long Meadow LLC, that actually was not decided, and that's going to be deferred until the residential, because if you recall, you all forwarded a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners for the balance of the Beatty property, about 70 acres. That was a request from Conservation and Industrial to R20,000. So that's moving forward. But then they also have that 30-acre C2 portion that they were requesting as well from industrial to C2. That property has been put on hold, even though we presented the staff report, the board heard it. They would like to hear the property in its entirety. So all 100 acres to hear both the commercial and the residential to make their final decision. So we will be forwarding that up as a complete package, and the applicant is very aware of that situation. So we'll be moving forward then. Other than that, all the other request decisions were made on them, and I'd be happy to give you a more in-depth report, perhaps at our February meeting, to go over each property and what the decisions were. But It was a really great process, and I was happy that that was the outcome on Thursday. We were able to move this forward and check off another box of this comp rezoning effort. So the commercial, industrial, and employment campus, that rezoning is complete. And as part of implementation, we've implemented those parts of the plan. So now we'll be moving forward with the residential, and we'll be coming to you all too with an update on the residential text and begin the review process of the text changes that have been worked on by staff and the public through various webinars that we've had over this COVID situation, as well as some early in-person meetings. We'll be going over those text amendments with you for you all to review and make your recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners.
And Lynn, let me just add, and Dan, you're, definitely, I think Linda can provide the details on some of the decisions, but since you mentioned the Beatty property, that really did also stem from our conversation and your, thoughts as well, that we have to get this piece of property right, especially down in Eldersburg. And that carried a lot of weight for me to presenting it to the Board of Commissioners saying, hey, although we're tasked to make a decision now, let's look at this holistically, like you shared, and I think not just you, but the others. So a lot of good value in that discussion. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Commissioner. If there's no other questions regarding that, I'm going to go ahead and see if Laura has any extensions for you all to go over today. Laura Matai.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
great. Awesome. Thank you. I have one extension this month. There was a 13th extension granted for Shipley's Choice 2. This is a one lot of subdivision, and it's in the 5th election district. That's the only one. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And next, I'm going to have Hannah Weber update you on BZA cases for this one. Hannah.
Good morning, everybody. There are 3 BZA cases for the hearing on the 26th. The first one is case 6287, Andrew Jones, located along Woods Road in Westminster. This is a conditional use for a commercial kennel and a variance in the ag zone. Our finding was not inconsistent due to the possible adverse effects on the property. The second case is case 6292, Karen Stewart. This is along Kate Wagner Road in Westminster. This is for a conditional use for a country inn in the ag zone, and this finding was consistent. The final case is case 6294, Elam Fisher. This is along Broadbeck Road in Hampstead, and this is another conditional use for a commercial kennel in the ag zone, and this one was found to be consistent. Do you guys have any questions? Okay.
All right, thank you, Hannah. With that concludes my administrative report. So now I think we're ready for agenda item 8. Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you, Secretary. Okay, we'll move on to item number 8, finally, FY22, the preliminary recommended CIP and bond authorization. Mr. Zaleski.
All right, Linda kind of caught me off guard that first time. I was sitting here doing other things and I hear her tell me I'm supposed to start. So it's a time of year again. This is an early step in our CIP process. I share with you some of what's going on, some of what we're looking at, some of the constraints we're facing, and then looking for your eventual agreement that this is consistent with the master plan. So going to run through some things with you, and then after I get done, if there's anything else that you want to question or talk about, we can go there. Now you have the book with capital requests, this coral color, salmon, whatever. And then the preliminary recommended CIP, the yellow book. Now I provide the request just for information. And as some of you have heard me say before, I don't spend a lot of time on those requests. We get requests for much, much more than we can ever consider doing. You know, sometimes people ask, how much did you cut from the request? And I never have an answer for that because we don't work that way. We don't start with an assumption that everything's in and then till we take it out. You know, we're working with the plans we have in place, and is there room, is there need for something else to be added? So the preliminary recommended CIP, first, I think it's important to remind people what this is, and both for the Planning Commission members and others that might be watching. This is a first look at our capital program. It's fiscally feasible. That is, we're saying within the resources we think are going to be available that this CIP can be done. That's a very interesting question this year. We're facing a lot of uncertainty. COVID and the impacts of dealing with it have raised a lot of questions, much more so than what we usually face. We always have uncertainty, but the uncertainty now is just so much greater. So I say fiscally feasible, but with an asterisk on that there's a lot we're still thinking about, a lot we're still waiting to find out. Is it consistent with commissioner goals? We get direction, we get specific decisions from the commissioners, and we're trying to build something that we believe is consistent with where they're trying to go. This is a continuation of existing plans. We don't start all over from zero every year. We have an existing 21 through 26 plan. That is the starting point for our 22 through 27 plan. There are differences, there always will be, but you'll see much of it carries forward from one plan to the next. And this is a starting point for commissioner discussions and decisions. Flip side of this, what the CIP is, preliminary recommended CIP is not. It is not the final CIP. There's a lot of work that will still take place between now and the time the commissioners adopt the budget in May. This isn't the end of analysis, at least not for every project. There are still projects in the mix here that we're continuing to work on, trying to refine our understanding, refine cost estimates, examine the scope. Things can still change. And it's not yet a commitment to project funding, timing, or revenue mix. We are saying to the people who are interested in these projects, both in accomplishing them and receiving the benefit of them, here's where we think we're going. But again, there's still a lot of work to do. Three big ideas about this CIP. First, it's largely dedicated to maintenance of our existing infrastructure. This has always been true, but in the last decade has become much more true. We're just not taking on a lot of new initiatives. The bulk of what's in here is about taking care of the things that we already own. I think we need to be very careful about adding projects that bring along with them increased ongoing costs. We don't have a lot of flexibility left in our budget. We went through big change in the Great Recession. The last decade really has not taken us back to anything we would have once thought of as normal. We don't have a lot of room for taking on new costs. And if we need to deal with any more impact from COVID, if we want to look at reducing capital spending as a way of dealing with it, there's really not much to go after here. Like I said, not a lot of new initiatives. And we can always reduce funding that's going to renewing our infrastructure, but we can only do that knowing that it needs to continue. We're not making a cost go away. We would just be delaying it in some way. So take a look at the capital fund. And I should have asked this. Do you have copies of the presentation that I'm reading from?
Some of ours did not arrive in mail in time.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, Ted, we did not get these until late last week, so we did our best to disseminate ahead of time. So I just got mine this morning, so we have not had an opportunity to review any of the request or recommended.
Okay. I probably should try and get this on the screen for you all then. Let me get some, oh, okay, I've just been made the presenter. Okay, Linda, can you walk me through what I need to do?
Ted, you should just be able to, where it says make presenter, you can share your screen and then pick the screen that you want to share.
Okay, I need to get that file open. Okay, so I hit share. And then do what?
Ted, you're good. You're sharing it now, but I would make it a full screen if you can. We only and remove the notes.
Got it.
Very good. Thank
Okay, so everybody's got that now? I'll take that as yes.
Yes, we can see it, Ted.
Okay, so I'll quickly go through the things I've been talking about. Okay, so here's where we were, the capital fund. So this is all our capital projects except for what's in the enterprise funds. That would be our utilities, solid waste, airport, et cetera. We show a little bit of history here. Red are years that have already happened, blue are plans. And when I say we're doing less, you can see how much we've dropped from what was happening before the recession. Now, it does still bounce around, and that's a consequence of the size of capital projects that come in and out from time to time. It's also important to think about what I just showed you in an inflation-adjusted way, which is an even more interesting picture. When I say we're doing less, you can see once you think about what we're able to do with the amount of dollars that are in there, how much less we are able to do these days. I won't spend a lot of time here. Just want to point out that since fiscal year 11, the county has significantly reduced its debt by a quarter. If we look into the future, when we get to fiscal year 27, based on our current plans, we will be back approximately to the same level of outstanding debt that we had in fiscal year 11. So 16 years with no increase in debt is a pretty remarkable story. I went through this with the commissioners, but I don't think this is something you really need to spend time on. So what's in the preliminary recommended CIP? As I've said, maintaining infrastructure, maintaining efforts in ag pres and water quality projects, public safety training center. This is the last state funding for this project. Public safety and microwave network replacement. This is a new project here. We found out recently from Motorola that they were not going to be supporting any more part of our network, and we're going to need to make some replacements there. Career and Tech Center addition and renovation, East Middle School replacement, Sheriff's Precinct in Eldersburg, and a number of park projects. And park projects are by far the most numerous, and that is driven by state shared program open space funding, which is dedicated to that purpose. When I talk about maintaining infrastructure, we talk about roads and bridges, HVAC, roof, paving, parks, technology, stormwater ponds, all the things that we own. We're also talking about things like water and sewer in our schools. We have 40 school buildings, all with roofs, all with pavement, all with HVACs, an ongoing effort to try and keep up with that. I mentioned ag pres and water quality. In schools, I mentioned career and tech in East Middle School. We also have money in for paving and for technology replacement. Nothing else, and this is an important point here. We believe with these projects, we've maxed out the available state funding in the years we're planning for here. One consequence of that is there are no plans in here for roofs or HVAC projects. New projects included in this CIP, a pavilion replacement at the Farm Museum, the microwave network I mentioned, Gillis Falls Trail Phase 2, and a master plan for the Northwest Area Regional Park, land we acquired fairly recently. Some changes from the existing plan. There's elimination of a waterless restroom at Cape Horn Park and of new lighting at Sports Complex. Both of these are a consequence of reduced program open space funding. Couple projects that have changed from the adopted plan: courthouse annex renovation and the Sheriff's Edwardsburg precinct. Both of those have had pretty significant revisions to the cost estimates. And public safety regional water supply. This is an effort to bring water to places that aren't on public utilities. We're moving to funding every other year instead of every year. They're sitting on a bit of a balance right now. Some things that are not in the preliminary recommended CIP. And this is a much longer list in some ways than what's in. For schools, William Winchester Elementary modernization, and there's actually a list of other desired modernizations after that. That's at the top of the list. 4 kindergarten additions. Going back years to when the state mandated full-day kindergarten, we built a lot of kindergarten additions. These have never been done or are not in the plan. The best program addition for Robert Moten and barrier-free modifications, but there is a balance available there. HVAC systems, the highest priorities are for Oklahoma Road Middle and Spring Garden Elementary. And if you look back to the existing plan, you'll see that there's an ongoing stream of money for as yet unidentified projects. That's no longer in, going back to what I was just talking about with state funding. Similar situation with roof replacements. Now with roofs, one good news that goes along with this, one piece of good news is we had gone through a big bubble of roof replacements and we were nearing the end. We got through a lot of it. So we're in a much better position than we were a decade ago, although we do still have some concerns. Not in for schools, security improvements, window replacements at 2 high schools. Moving away from schools, in roads, England Road Roundabout, Georgetown Boulevard Extension, Monroe Extension, Ridenhour Extension, none of those are in this plan. And adding sidewalks to a couple places in Eldersburg. In recreation, I mentioned the Cape Horn project and the sports complex lighting. A couple other projects that are not in, again, reacting to the availability of funding. A couple projects in the Burke building are not included. The community college has talked about a sports complex, like a parking garage, more technology funding. None of those things are in. Elections office renovation is not included. And an addition out at the maintenance center, not included. Sewer line to the maintenance center is not included. We are on septic there and it is still perfectly good working condition. Expansion of technology services office, a number of aging and senior center projects are not in. Circuit Court would like a replacement for their visitation center, and a number of library projects are not included. Some changes at the existing detention center, a new sheriff headquarters, a new detention center, a couple other smaller projects. None of these are in our plan. Now, it's not a list of everything that's not in, but some of the things that might catch people's interest.
Ted, can I ask a quick question before
Sure.
you continue on? So, and I get and I understand what happened during the Great Recession and all of that, and not to put you on the spot because you're just a budget guy. You don't make the decision of revenue and all that. But long-term wise, if the county, if you keep putting off making certain improvements, eventually that's going to catch up to you in different ways. I guess my first question is, what are potential solutions to address that? Because at some point in time, you got to do something. You just can't not maintain what you have or make necessary improvements.
Okay, first let me say, I don't want to leave an idea out there that we are not maintaining our infrastructure. Now, I have some concerns in places where we might not be doing as much as I think we need to, but we're still spending a lot of money renewing our infrastructure. Now, as far as what do you do over the long term, conceptually, it's very simple. You either need more revenue or you have to stop spending money on something else in order to put it where you want it. Of course, in implementation, that becomes a very complex question. Yeah, more money means increased tax rates, not something that most people are really interested in happening. And on the expenditure side, there's just not a lot of easy changes to make. Carroll County doesn't offer a really big set of services. We tend to focus on pretty basic things. There aren't easy things to say, let's stop doing that. And your question is one that occupies a lot of my mind and a lot of my time. Thinking about, what are the choices we can make and how do we go about making those decisions? And I expect that the commissioners will be thinking a lot about those same questions over these next few months.
Okay, thank you, Ted.
This captures in a fairly simple way the change from the 21 through 26 plan to the 22 to 27 plan. Capital funding, again, is always kind of lumpy, so it bounces around more than you would expect if you looked at an operating change. Now, in the enterprise funds, we have capital projects as well. A lot in utilities. There's always a lot going on there. I'm not going to go through individual projects. Probably the one, that's really noteworthy is upgrades to Sykesville water and sewer. This will be actually happening in the town. Airport, fiber network, solid waste, a few projects, nothing particularly noteworthy there. And here's a similar capturing of the change in the enterprise funds from one plan to the next. Some things that I think we need to think about in schools, state funding. Now, the governor vetoed legislation last session for what's been often referred to as Kerwin funding. And tied to that legislation was also some new capital funding. That veto is expected to be overridden. Question we have, I think, to consider is the General Assembly didn't actually know how they were going to pay for implementation of all that. The state's fiscal situation is worse now than it was when they adopted that legislation. Will they simply veto, or is this going to go into other changes and changes that might have impact on Carroll County and our ability to fund things? Modernizations and systemics, I talked a little bit about this, and this goes to Dan's question. We have things to take care of. How are we going to make that work? Redistricting is always of interest when we're considering capital projects, and we have some specific interest in the Freedom Elementary School area right now. And then I mentioned the Kerwin impacts. Something that's relatively new that we have not dealt with in this plan yet, but we'll have to. We are being required to make changes to the Piney Run Dam. A big question that will need to be answered is, do we want to keep that viable as a source of water or not? That will impact how expensive a project this is, significantly impact. If we want it to be a potential source of water, it will be a much more expensive project. Infrastructure, we've talked some about. Detention center, I mentioned that there is not a new detention center project in here. We will have to do this. someday. And also in infrastructure, in fiscal year 20, the commissioners made some reductions to the funding going to roads and facilities. Again, same sort of conversation, something we need to keep thinking about. Okay, the bond authorization is not something that you need to deal with today. So with you not all having your books, I was going to kind of point you to some pages. Probably won't do that now since you can't just mark them. But when you have your book, you'll see that there's something called the quick guide, and you'll see some comparison charts, and then a bunch of summaries. And these are all in the first 50 pages or so of the book. The rest of the book is individual projects. But if you want to look at kind of the big picture, what's happening, how are things changing, where's the money going, where's the money coming from, those summaries are the place for you to go. Okay, I'll stop there and then we can talk about whatever you might like to talk about.
I do have a question, Ted, about on page 16, I guess I just want to understand, we have the ag land preservation for FY22, and we're recommending more than they requested. Can you walk me through how that decision is made?
Oh, that's because one source of funding, relatively small part, is from the ag transfer tax. And we will react to that from time to time when we've built up some money there to add that into the available funding. So it's not really about what they're asking for. That was just where we were. As far as the ag program goes, they would always be willing to work with however much money we are able to put in there. Hey, Linda, how do I get back out of share screen?
Hit the stop sharing screen button. It looks like a gray circle with the screen and a slash through it. You can just hit stop sharing.
I don't see that.
Control room, can you just stop sharing his screen for him, please? Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess I can still take questions while we're working on that.
Ted,
Yeah, I don't
you-
have access.
I heard something in the, I read something briefly, but I really didn't dig into it yet. Was there something about potentially raising rates in the Freedom area for water sewer or something like that that I read about to help balance things out when it comes to that? Am I correct about that, or did I mishear that?
No, well, that comes up regularly. I think 2 years ago, if I'm remembering right, the commissioners approved a 3-year plan for increases. So that'll probably be coming up again. And, and the basic thing here is, the cost of running the system will always increase over time. And we actually have a little bit of a problem in that over recent years, water use has gone down, which actually reduces the revenue at the same time that, costs of running the system are going up. So I'm sure you'll be hearing about that again.
Hey, Ted, this is Jeff. I don't know how familiar you are with our master plan, but just sort of a general question, to the extent you're familiar with it, do you have a sense of whether this comports with the master plan, or do you see anywhere where it might deviate a little bit?
No, I don't think there's anything we would ever put in here we would expect to be a problem.
So Jeff, that is something that we will review. So we just received these documents. I will review them along with staff to see if there's anything that's contrary to the plan, because as it states in state law, it needs to meet the comprehensive plan goals and objectives. So that's what we'll be doing. And then Ted, do you need to come back before us again? I'll have to put it on our agenda again to go over it with you. Now, there were some projects that we put in as planning, like the extension of Georgetown Boulevard. That is a particular problem in the Eldersburg area. It was in the requested, but not in the recommended. So those will be projects that I will point out to you all that we would write in a comment letter, sending it up to the commissioners and Mr. Zaleski. Ted, when do you need that by? Because we would not be able to take it up until probably our February meeting.
Oh, that's no problem. It's just a step in the process. You know, the commissioners have a long way to go.
Yes, they do. So we'll bring this back up at our regular work session in February for you all. That way it would have given you a solid month to review. Staff will have had time to review, and we will draft a letter that will go then to the commissioners in budget and management.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. I was going to ask if you could send us a list of what you guys had recommended, because after everything we've gone through in the past few years, like the master plan, the freedom plan, the zoning amendments, our rezoning efforts, I think there's a couple things that I'm taking note of. So I'm not saying that's not in relation, not consistent with the master plan, but there's some things I guess I've been thinking about based upon what we've seen in the past couple of years. Like, for instance, like you said, the Georgetown Boulevard extension. To me, we've seen over the past couple of years how important this is going to be. So for our planned growth and stuff. So
yes, we can put that together for you. And yes, from a planning perspective, that is an important project with the hotel that's going in along London Town, and then any future development that's going to be coming on that Beatty property. That Georgetown Boulevard traffic circle and extension is going to be key to traffic flow and frankly safety in that area. So that's something I think that we would want to have a good discussion on at the next meeting.
Yeah, and just on that idea, this comes up from time to time when we're talking about our plans with the Planning Commission. Always need to keep in mind the gap or the potential gap between things we would like to see and what we are able to actually afford to do. And with roads, it's also an interesting thing there. You know, often they're tied to development potential. And of course, sometimes when areas are developing, roads are part of what they are doing. So it can get complicated talking about, you know, what we're planning for and what's in the CIP.
Right, I mean, I totally agree about that, but if we're going to try to do the development in our growth area, then we have to make it so that development and that stuff can occur. So, you know, sometimes, anyhow, I guess I can bring my thoughts up more at our February 3rd meeting once everybody's had a chance to really look through everything. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Is it possible to get a copy of the presentation that Ted gave us today too?
Sure.
That would be
Ted,
great.
send it to me, or if you can send it to me and Lauren Bavetta, we will disseminate it to our planning commission.
I'll do that.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Ted.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So with that, I'll move on to item number 9, the Manchester annexation number 40, Patriots Overlook. Claire Stewart. Mark, you're not Claire.
Hello. Control room, could I have, thank you. There we go. Okay. All right, you should be able to see my screen now. Yeah, so this is Manchester annexation number 40, also known as Patriots Overlook. And with us today, we have Clark Schaefer, who's representing the petitioner. We have Marty Hackett, and then we also have Michelle Wilder with the town of Manchester.
Okay, so our petitioner is PV Manchester LLC, and they are petitioning the town of Manchester to annex a portion of their property into the town corporate limits. On December 1st, the county received a request to comment on the petition. And just as a reminder, the county does not approve or disapprove petitions for annexation. The county's responsibility is to comment on the petition and then approve or disapprove a zoning waiver if one has been requested. So the plat you see here was submitted with the annexation packet, and the request is for 12.7 acres of a 16-acre parcel. Here is the 12.7 acres. The parcel is split right here. So this top portion is the 12.7, which is a petition for annexation. And then we have 3.3 acres to the south here that was incorporated into the town with the town's first annexation, I believe was in 1966. So once again, the requested area is outlined in blue on this map. To the north here is Maryland 27. So this way is the town of Manchester. And then this way is Westminster. All of this area that is gray and hatched is the town corporate limits. And as I said before, this 3.3 acres was already incorporated. This black and yellow dashed line is the town's municipal growth area. The petitioned area is within the MGA and the county certified party funding area. Here we have an ortho of the area. You can see it is unimproved, including the portion that's already incorporated. As I said before, down here we have Park Avenue, and there is access from Park Avenue. And then I think it's pronounced Broham Court is over this way, and we have access from this court as well. Our surrounding uses are residential. And as you can see, the site does have a good amount of forest cover on it. And there are some steep slopes in the central portion of the site. A concept plan was submitted with the annexation package. The subdivision plan proposes 36 single-family lots on 26 acres. The plan is a total of 4 parcels, which are all owned by PV Manchester LLC. On this right-hand map, the subdivision plan is made up of everything that's outlined in red. So 1 parcel, 2, 3, and then all of the parcel that's up for annexation right now. And everything besides the portion to be annexed is currently zoned R20,000 in the town. So the area to be annexed is zoned residential 40,000 in the county. As you're aware, that's roughly one dwelling unit per acre. The petitioner is proposing the residential zoning of R20,000 to match the area that's already incorporated. That's roughly 2 dwelling units per acre. And there is a zoning waiver that's being requested. The proposed zoning is substantially different, greater than the 50% threshold from a density perspective. The designated land use is medium density residential from the 2018 Manchester Comprehensive Plan. And from our most recent water and sewer master plan, the petitioned area is in the no planned water and sewer service areas. And after a preliminary review, our water and sewer planner believes there is capacity to bring the site into the Manchester service areas. So as usual, we reached out to county and state agencies for comments. Planning ourselves had one comment. Planning staff recommends that the town move forward with the spring 2021 amendment to the water and sewer master plan to bring the proposed annexation area into the priority water and sewer service areas. And then MDP had two comments. One was just recommending that the town seek a zoning waiver from the county commissioners, which the petitioner is seeking that. And then the second comment from MDP was that the property is eligible to remain in the certified party funding area. So with that, the staff recommendation is that you forward the comments outlined in the staff report and support of the zoning waiver request to the Board of County Commissioners. And at this time, are there any questions?
I don't have any, as we've seen this before, and it makes, sense. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we recommend approval.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second for approval of this forwarding a favorable recommendation for annexation. Linda, are you going to do a voice vote? I take it.
I think for this, we can all just, all in favor, put your thumbs up, all the others, if you're opposed.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So it looks like it's unanimous.
Unanimous. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll be taking this to the county commissioners on Thursday, the 21st, and then again on the 28th.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next item on the agenda is our recess. I'll take note that after we get back from recess, we do have a site plan, final site plan we are going to discuss. So if anybody's watching the movie and is watching the meeting and planning on calling in to make comment on this site plan, please do so while we're on recess. And I have 10 o'clock. So let's think about a 10-minute recess, come back at 10:10. Dan, will you be joining us when we come back?
I'm going to try to join you. I'm going to try to stay on at least through the solar panel text amendment, but I'm probably going to have to jump off.
Okay, so 10 minutes. meeting back to order. And with that, we'll move on to item number 11, which is the community solar zoning text amendment, the introduction.
Good morning, folks. Tom Delvis, Director of Land and Resource Management. I'm going to be doing a brief introduction to the introduction, and then I'll be turning it over to Brenda Denny, who's our project manager. And also joining us today are Laura from Bureau of Development Review, who I know you're very familiar with, and Mr. Jay Boyd, our zoning administrator. That's our team from Land and Resource Management who's been working on this. The commissioners gave a direction to our staff in the spring of 2020 to look at expanding opportunities for community solar in the county. As you may recall or know, right now, community solar is a principal permitted use in the commercial industrial zones only. And so we met with the Board of Commissioners 3 times, the last of which was the early part of December. And at that point in time, they gave us direction to move with the concept plan, which you're going to be presented here today, to the Planning and Zoning Commission for your review and approval. So what we want to do today, our main goal today is just to introduce this to you, this concept to you of expanding community solar, mainly into the ag zone, the agricultural zone, and how we presented it and what the Board of Commissioners approved to move forward. We are planning on a follow-up discussion with you on, I think it's the 3rd of February, where we will get into a lot more details and we can provide you with the proposed actual text language to the code. And right now, we're just going to give you some of the background information and bring you up to speed on community solar if you're not familiar with it. So with the background information, Brenda, are you able to share your screen?
Looks like I need to be made presenter. I'm the share my screen. There you go.
Okay, 1 second then. So just briefly, as some background, in 2015, the Maryland legislature passed legislation that would allow community solar a pilot program in the state of Maryland to develop community solar. And that pilot program has been extended through 2022. When that happened, the Board of Commissioners actually authorized the Environmental Advisory Council to prepare a report, and that report was entitled Community Solar in Carroll County. And that gave a lot of background, a lot of information on community solar, and kind of was preparing the county for the possibility of community solar. In 2019, as a follow-up, the Environmental Advisory Council, at the direction of the Board of Commissioners, developed a guide to becoming a community solar subscriber in Carroll County. And all this information is available on the county's website for the general public and for you folks to take a look at and gain a lot more information or knowledge if you so choose on this topic. So as we move into the process here, what I'd like to do is make sure that you understand that we've been to the Board of County Commissioners in the spring. We've been since then doing like a stakeholder outreach and feedback, which Brenda's going to briefly touch on with you. We then went back to the Board of County Commissioners with a few revisions, and those revisions, again, Brenda will explain to you. We've continued the public outreach. We've actually put something out there, across all of our media outlets with the county regarding this conceptual plan. The conceptual plan and all the discussions we've had with the Board of County Commissioners are online and accessible to the general public. And so where we're here today is to begin the process with you in reviewing this concept and ultimately then discussing actual text amendments based on those concepts with you to provide you with the background you need, provide a review and recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And after that process, we'll be hopefully going back to the Board of County Commissioners for their review and possibly moving towards a public hearing process sometime in the spring here. That is our goal. So with that little bit of opening, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Brenda, and she's going to present to you basically what is community solar and then the concepts and ideas that our staff have developed to present to you today. Brenda?
Good morning. So I'm going to run through the proposed concepts that we have here for this text amendment. Some of your questions may be answered by slides that come later. So I'm not sure if you might want to hold any questions till the end. It's up to you. But so I wanted to start off by, what is community solar? It is a little different than a standard commercial solar facility. It's a system, that's shared by more than one customer, and it's not on site. And the purpose is to allow people to access solar who, for one reason or not another, cannot have it on their own property. So under state law, and it is defined in Maryland law, it's 2 or more subscribers. It's connected to the grid. You can subscribe to any facility within your utility service district. So if you are a BGE customer, you can subscribe to any community solar facility in the BGE service area. So in Carroll County, you could subscribe to a facility that's in Harford County. It's the power generated then is credited to the subscriber's bill. The facilities themselves are capped currently at 2 megawatts, and 2 megawatts is roughly 5 to 8 acres per megawatt. So we're talking 10 to 16 acres for one of these facilities. They can be owned by pretty much anybody. Statewide, not per facility, but statewide, community solar facilities are capped at 414 megawatts currently. That could increase. So when we were putting together a proposal at the commissioner's direction, we were trying to look at how we could balance certain things. So the commissioners wanted to increase access to solar, but we also wanted to minimize impacts to farmland, mitigate community concerns, because there are often concerns in the community that are come up when solar facilities are proposed in farmland, and also find ways to co-locate solar with other agricultural type uses so we can provide benefits that way. So the zoning text amendment itself, the definition in the text amendment would be whatever the state law's definition is as of July 1st. That would be because if the state increased their cap, ours would stay the same unless the commissioners took action to increase that. It would be located in the agricultural district, currently as a principal permitted use on existing remaining portions of 5 acres or greater. And then when the facility is built, a permanent easement will be required on the rest of the land that's not used for solar. Oops. Just a quick review. I'm sure you're very familiar with what remaining portions are, but essentially a remaining portion, this is directly out of our chapter 158, is in the ag district, the land remaining after residential subdivision lots have been created from a legally established parcel of land through the subdivision process. So essentially, these parcels have already been developed residentially, at least have developed the residential uses that they are permitted. And those are principal permitted uses in the ag district. So what we're doing here is creating parcels that are eligible to be considered for community solar facilities, but just because they are eligible does not mean they're suitable. So the suitability, there's a lot of different things that need to be considered, and that is up to the solar developer to determine if the parcel is actually suitable. So there could be a lot of parcels that are eligible, but maybe only a fraction of them that are actually suitable. So some of the things a solar developer would need to consider is proximity to the distribution lines, capacity of those lines to actually take on additional power, because they do have a limit on their capacity. Site constraints such as slopes, sun exposure, and natural resources, cost to them. Different parcels are going to be different costs. And also they are going to need approval from the Maryland Public Service Commission, as well as the utility itself to whose lines they're connecting to. In terms of other possible things that determine suitability, there are state policies that affect that. For one thing, currently two community solar facilities cannot adjoin each other. on two adjoining parcels, and they cannot cross parcel lines. Also state policy, they cannot build on a parcel that's been subdivided within the past 5 years. And, you know, based on the definition I already mentioned to you, they cannot exceed 2 megawatts in capacity. Oops. Sorry, my mouse is a little sensitive. So, of course, the site plan would be required if they are to develop a proposed community solar facility on a parcel. There's environmental resources that would need to be considered, such as stream buffers, forest, and, you know, of course, having to comply with our existing environmental codes. There's bulk and height restrictions that they would have to be subject to. Currently, the proposal is 35 feet setback from the center line of the right-of-way and from adjoining parcels, and a maximum of 15 feet in height. In terms of project infrastructure, much of it would be underground, but of course the solar developer can't control what the utility company would want above ground. And then there would be, which is a common requirement in these things across the country, is there would be a abandonment and decommissioning plan would be required. So part of what I mentioned earlier in terms of balancing concerns was agriculture co-location. And one of the things that would be, they'd have an option to either pursue the Maryland pollinator-friendly solar designation, which is something administered by Maryland Department of Natural Resources, or they could pursue some type of agricultural use beneath the solar facilities. So some common type things are you can see. They might graze sheep, cattle, probably not so realistic, but they might graze sheep underneath these facilities. Some places they put community gardens underneath it, or other types of specialty crops. A landscape buffer would be required. And this is just the picture here you can see is kind of an example. And what we're talking about is not the kind of flowers and other landscaping that you would see in a commercial area, but more of something that looks like it belongs in the natural landscape. So berms and trees and other types of plantings that would blend in with the surrounding environment. And that's it. So you can see, if you haven't already checked it out, we have the webpage that Tom mentioned with everything is on there. We have a map on there. We have we have bulleted concepts up there, and all the information is up there, and the process is up there. And of course, there's my information if you have additional questions after today.
I just got a few questions just to clarify to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So this would only be allowed in the agricultural district and only on remaining portions that are 5 acres or greater. Is that correct?
That's the current proposal, yes.
Okay. But it would be a principal permitted use, but subject to site plan approval.
That's correct. And the reason that we were proposing it as a principal permitted use is, you know, if it was a conditional use, you'd have conditions put on it. But what we're trying to do is build in to the proposed text all of the conditions that you would want to put on it anyway. So hopefully everything would have to address all these conditions.
Because if I bring you a project and I want to do it, but it doesn't make feasibility sense, it's not going to happen anyway. Because no one's going to build a solar is part of the point as well, I'm assuming.
That's correct.
And then the idea would be for, in exchange for allowing a community solar project, the county would put a permanent easement, and I'm assuming a permanent agricultural easement on the remaining land. Is that correct?
That's correct. It wouldn't be an agricultural land preservation easement because those types of properties don't fit our criteria for the AgPres program, but we would develop some type of conservation easement that would do so. And so yes, you're correct. So
well, wait a minute. We could have, if it's our own easement, we can do whatever we want as far as agriculture. In other words, if depending on the remaining portion, I understand that sometimes it might make sense for conservation more than ag, but if it's our own program, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody on staff, but if it's our own program, a Carroll County easement, you know, even if it's a smaller piece, we could still restrict it for agricultural use. Is that not correct? Am I wrong about that? If
Yes,
it's a 20-acre piece and I'm doing, or let's say it's a 30-acre piece and I'm doing, you know, 3 acres of a community solar project, can I put a easement on the rest that has to be continued to use for agricultural purposes, or am I wrong about that?
Yes, it would probably look very similar to an ag preservation easement. And all I'm saying is that it would not technically be an ag pres easement because it doesn't match the criteria for that program, but it would look very similar.
Yeah, Dan, our goal is to make it look very similar and restrict non-agricultural uses on it. But it won't technically be like our traditional agricultural easements. But it will look very much like that. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Will it count towards our goal or not?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. That's another thing I'm getting at too. Okay, so yeah, I understand, but if it's a county easement, we have a lot of flexibility in how we design it. So it'll be an ag preservation easement of sorts. Let's put it that way.
It'll be like a hybrid county easement. How's that?
Yeah.
Good way to describe it.
It's an interesting idea, certainly.
So I have a question. Why is only this ag? Because I've heard about these. These are especially helpful for people who can't afford a solar system to join into a community type thing like this because they can't afford or don't have the ability to do it on their own property. So why only are we looking at ag?
They are already permitted in all the commercial industrial districts. So the only new options would be ag conservation and residential. And this is what the commissioners directed us to, where they directed us to propose.
So no residential.
Right.
Yeah, keep in mind now, this is a commercial operation. And when one of these is made, folks that don't have the ability to put it on their property can subscribe to this. So they can gain the benefit of having solar without having it on their property. So all this is allowing is a larger inventory of quote commercial solar that individual property owners and folks can subscribe to and gain benefit from.
Okay, so it'd be like maybe somebody at Eldersburg can subscribe to one that's outside of Tawnytown. Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be, okay.
But hold on, probably not, because there I think you're jumping over the different
Service area,
entities that own it. So somebody in Eldersburg could subscribe to someone in Manchester, but they could not do it because there you're going into, I think, is it Allegheny Power now or whatever? It's breaching over into the other company. So you can't cross those lines, but you can stay within them.
Okay, so within, okay,
Okay.
okay.
I definitely like the idea that you'd be preserving some additional ag land. So, I mean, I think that's a innovative, smart way to go about this. And I mean, there's only going to be a certain number of our remaining portions that are going to have any chance of being feasible for something like this. But, if it ends up over the years, getting the county an extra 1,000 acres in ag preservation or something like that, it's something. So,
Yes,
does anybody have any downsides to this? Can anybody think of any downsides that they don't like about this?
So this is Jeff. Well, maybe I do. I'm not sure. Just listening to the presentation, I appreciate it. It's very helpful. Am I right in understanding that this can only be used on remainders after residential development has occurred?
Yes.
Yes, because the remaining portions, correct me if I'm wrong, the remaining portion is when the property is totally exhausted of its development rights.
So what about a property that's in ag preservation? Would it qualify for these?
It only qualifies for whatever their easement would currently allow.
Yeah. The answer to that is actually no, it would not on like county ones. Some of this may be allowed on mouth, so it depends on which program they're in, but that really has nothing to do with what we're looking at right here. So technically speaking, no, they would not be allowed on county easements or mouth easements unless mouth allows them on there, which is, it's not connected to this program here.
Okay, and is this subscription that we're talking about? People live in town, maybe they can't have solar on their property, but they want to subscribe into this program. Is there a similar program for solar panels that are in industrial and commercial complexes already, and we're adding this ag remainder to that program, or this is different and separate from that?
Now, this same exact facility is currently allowed in commercial industrial districts. It's just
People can subscribe. Okay.
same users. Yep.
Okay. So Dan, back to your question about, is there any downside? The only downside is, honestly, I think these things can be ugly. And looking out across an agricultural view and seeing these glass panels out there, I don't particularly like. That's the downside to me. That's just me.
I know, but
So-
correct me if I'm wrong from a staff perspective, but I think that we could mitigate some of that through the site plan aspect and certain berming and screening if necessary. Depending on the location, because I think there are some properties where that would be a real concern. And I think others, depending on where it's located and what's around it, I'm not sure that a solar panel field of an acre is any worse than a giant, ag building per se. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Staff, can you comment on that? We would have the ability to have some input on screening and berming if necessary, depending on the situation.
Yes, in fact, as I mentioned, one of the requirements that we've built in the proposal is that they would have to have a landscape buffer along the public right-of-ways and adjoining properties. And so that would be at a minimum. And that would be berming and natural landscaping, natural trees that you would see so that it blends in well.
And I think the next time,
Go
ahead, Brenda, I'm sorry.
If they chose to do the pollinator friendly designation, then there could potentially be wildflowers growing underneath that would also help with the aesthetic.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're going to be discussing with you on the 3rd is we'll have text amendments and we'll have some of the landscaping details that maybe we can review with you and go over and get your feedback on them and additions to them if you feel necessary. One thing I did want to bring up, 2 points. One, the commissioners were very adamant that they wanted to try to make this blend into the agricultural zone the best we could, knowing that, solar panels are not a traditional agricultural use. So that's why the co-benefit type of language was included or will be included. The second thing is the commissioners wanted to limit the suitable acres. And so that's why the proposal for the remaining portions was put on the table so that there would be a limited number of acres in the agricultural zone that would be suitable, and then an even smaller amount that would be available for use. So what we found is that I think I got that backwards actually, but what you get the idea, I believe. What we were trying to do is do this on like a pilot program. The state program is considered a pilot program, and we wanted to do a similar pilot program here in Carroll County. So that's why we started out, we hope a small inventory, which will expand our current inventory, but it's still a small addition to it. And the commissioners then can ease into this, get feedback from the public as this moves forward. And then as proposals come along in the future, and I guarantee with the solar industry and all they will, to expand it, they'll have something, under their belts to evaluate it from both the public perspective, from your perspective, from the site plan review process. All those things will be available then in the future to make further decisions at that point in time.
Are we going to have a acre limit on the size of the solar facility?
The current proposal would be drafted with 20 acre max, and they wouldn't need, typically they wouldn't need whole 20 acres to do 2 megawatts, but that gives them some flexibility to work with site constraints. So yes, the maximum acreage would be 20 acres.
Well, let me ask you this: are we also with that going to have a percentage allocation? In other words, if I have a 50-acre remainder, that no more than 10% of that remainder can be taken up with a solar panel, because the solar panel facility. Because like if I have a 50-acre remainder, or let's say I only have a 30-acre remainder, and I put in a 20-acre solar panel facility, I have in essence, I would argue, changed the complexion of that property. That's no longer accessory use, or it's taken up the whole thing. So what conversations have there been regarding, I understand the limit for 20 acres, but I think we also need to look at it as a percentage of the entire piece, potentially. There might be negatives of that. Can you comment on that?
We haven't built that in, and the reason for that is just that most solar developers that I've talked to would not even consider the property if they can't do the maximum, because it's just not economically feasible for them. So that's something you can talk about and consider in a recommendation, but we haven't currently built it into the proposal for that reason.
Well, then I think that is a concern that we need to talk about and address, because my argument would be, if I have a 25-acre remainder and I'm putting on a 20-acre solar facility, my property in essence is no longer ag. You know what I mean? It's not, I get the idea and I'm all for it in some ways, but solar panels is not a crop. And so if we are taking a property that otherwise would be used for agricultural use, and in essence, turning that whole piece over to what I would argue is really more of a commercial use, I think that's somewhat problematic. And I mean, that's just off the top of my head. I need to think about that more, but that's, I think, a concern. Because, I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but I have a little bit of concerns if we're taking a remaining portion and in essence turning the whole thing over to solar panels. I got a problem with it.
Dan, one thing we could do in the regulations, so we could put a simple sentence in stating that the solar panels would not be a reason for changing from agricultural use to any other use. So really restrict it to just the ag use, forever, and the solar panels, wouldn't be an argument that you could use to go commercial on that property or something in that way. We can make a statement in the code doing that.
That's a interesting idea. Jay, I mean, that still doesn't take away from the concern that in essence, you're taking a property and, making it more commercial than anything if it's small enough. But I think that's a very valid point and a good idea, because it kind of forestalls someone, putting in a solar panel facility and then coming back to us later and go, oh yeah, change our zoning to commercial because I'm really commercial. Yes.
No, and one thing you also have to remember, there's a lot of other ag uses that are currently allowed that
True.
Basically commercial uses anyway.
That's true. Yeah.
Like I say, by putting that simple sentence in it, you're really restricting, the use of the property. Just basically say it's not a condition for changing the zoning.
This is Jeff. For me, I think this is a good discussion, and I know we're going to have more of them. Just sort of from a 30,000-foot view, for me, Carroll County has this agricultural character to it, and that's why we have agricultural preservation. And there are many places in the county where you can drive and take in basically an agricultural vista. It's beautiful. Northern part of the county has lots of those, and it's a great thing. And I think it's part of the character of our county. And I don't necessarily stop and look at commercial or industrial vistas where they allow these solar panels. And so for me, it's sort of a different kind of concern that I have, that somehow we're going to change the character of the agricultural vistas and the agricultural field of our county by saying for agricultural remainders, this is a principal permitted use. Throw them down, that's fine. And I get that there are lots of other agricultural uses that look a lot like commercial and industrial. and we deal with that through site plans, and this wouldn't be different. But I'm going to keep raising this as an issue because I just want to make sure that we don't inadvertently change the character of the county in ways that are unintended, I guess. So I'm not against the program. I think it's great. I understand why we're doing it. But like everything else we do in this commission, we're balancing, you know, a bunch of interests. So.
Have we gotten the Farm Bureau's perspective on this, by the way?
Yes, we went to the Farm Bureau, the Ag Commission, the Ag Advisory Board, and the Soil Conservation District to get to, you know, run these concepts by them and get their, you know, general feedback on them. And the Ag Commission and the Farm Bureau were both opposed to any commercial solar uses in the agricultural district. And that,
who was opposed?
Excuse me?
Can you repeat who was opposed again?
The Farm Bureau and the Ag Commission were both opposed to any commercial uses of solar in the agricultural district. And like I said, that's been their position for many years. So that's, you know.
And that information was conveyed to the Board of Commissioners in December 10th when we talked to them, and they wanted to proceed with this concept to you all, knowing that we have gotten that feedback.
So on February 3rd, we'll be going through with you the actual draft proposed text revision to the code. So, you know, before then we'll have that drafted and we'll get it sent to you so you can actually see the details of what these concepts would look like in the zoning text amendment.
Thank you. Interesting. And I don't know if I agree with Dan and Jeff about changing the ag concept, since ag can be used for so much, and you build a house and it's no longer ag, but it's still called ag. So well, I think we'll have
agree with us.
and I in some ways I think it needs to be expanded beyond just remaining portions. So I feel that if an ag or a farmer owns the land, they know the best use for their land, and they should be able to make that decision. So we'll talk obviously in our next meeting, work session. It's a work session, so I think we'll have even more detail to go through since this was just the intro.
Yes, like I said, text amendment. Excuse me.
No, so we don't have a very busy agenda. It's this and some residential discussion. So we will dedicate most of the meeting to having this. That way you can have a good draft prepared for you and to forward up eventually to the Board of County Commissioners. And it doesn't have to all be finished on that February meeting either. So however long it takes to get this how you want it, that's what we'll do.
Thank you all very much, and we look very forward to having this discussion on the 3rd, because both internally and externally, we've had a lot of the things you've brought up. We've had discussions amongst ourselves and with others, so we look very forward to this discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item number 12 on our agenda. It's the final site plan for S160025 Hagan and Son Tree Service. Morning, David.
Good morning, commission members. Control room, if I could have the presentation ability, that'd be great. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so thank you for the introduction. As stated, my name is David Beecraft with the Bureau of Development Review. The project, I believe this is actually the only project we have on the agenda for you this month, is the Hagan and Son Tree Service, which is file number S-16-0025. With me, I see John Limmerman, who is representing the engineer, which is RTF Associates, And I also seen Mr. David Bowersox, who I believe is representing the owner. Is that correct, Mr. Bowersox? Or is Mr. Hagan going to be present?
That's correct. I'm representing Mr. Hagan today.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so what this project is proposing is a site plan for the existing contractors equipment storage yard, and they are also proposing a pole building. This project is before the Planning and Zoning Commission as a final site plan, and so we are here looking for consideration and approval. This project resides at 900 Pleasant Valley Road. To give an idea for where that is, for those who may not know, this is Pleasant Valley Road here. This is 97 that leads into the Westminster city limits down here. Here is Stone Road, and Hughes Shop Road is over here. So this is the full property here. The property is roughly 30 acres and hosts the existing tree service business up front here, and also a residential dwelling in the back here. There are 2 points of access to the site. There's one on the easternmost property edge, and then there's one on the westernmost property edge. The one on the east grants access to the site as well as a residential dwelling, and the one on the west is only to the site. There is an existing tree line on the western property line and along Pleasant Valley Road. The property lies within the agricultural zoning district. The site is pretty flat with a steep slope up towards the roadway, and the roadway with that required a guardrail that is existing in place. There are 2 streams on the property that you can see here. There's one that flows north and south, and then there's one that flows east and west. There is a FEMA 100-year floodplain designation, as you can see outlined with this light blue shading, and it encompasses only the stream that flows east and west. All adjoining properties are currently zoned agricultural. They're all served by private well and septic systems, and they host either residential dwellings or farmland, as you can see from this aerial. And so this is the property here, just a little bit closer so you can see how the site looks. Granted, this aerial is from 2017, so the property may look different today. So to give some background on this property, so the property went before the Board of Zoning Appeals in February of 2015 within case number 5810. This granted a conditional use permit to the owner for a contractor's storage facility that was less than 1 acre and a variance for setback requirements of 400 feet within the agricultural zoning district. The project was first submitted as a simplified site plan, but it was determined that the square footage of disturbance within that within the project was greater than 5,000 square feet, which meant that they had to submit a full site plan for the project. A site plan review was initially submitted in September of 2016 to bring the site into compliance. During the site review process, the zoning administrator challenged the firewood processing operation within the contractor's equipment storage yard. Firewood processing is not a principal permitted use within the agricultural zoning district. On December 1st, 2020, the Board of Zoning Appeals convened to hear a request by the owner for an appeal of the zoning administrator's aforementioned determination. The board found that Mr. Hagan's trees business was lawful when it was approved in 2015 and continued to be lawful to this day. They found that the operation had not changed since the conditional approval of the use in 2015, and that the processing of firewood is an accessory to the tree business. So the final site plan proposes a contractor's equipment storage yard with an area of less than 1 acre. It comes out to 0.82 acres. and they're also proposing this 50-foot by 100-foot pole building. Again, this plan is to bring the contractor's equipment storage yard into compliance with code. A dense graded aggregate stone area is proposed west of the building, which will reside here, and this will be used for wood and material storage. The proposed pole building will be used to house company equipment and will be fully enclosed with overhead doors on the east and west elevations. So to give an idea of that, this is the elevation drawings of the building that is proposed. There are no pole-mounted lights or freestanding business signs proposed. So again, this concept site plan was initially submitted September of 2016. The plan was subject to citizen involvement at the October 24th, 2016 Technical Review Committee meeting. One citizen who was an owner of an adjoining property raised concerns pertaining to the screening from Pleasant Valley Road and security and current security lights. The site plan for the subject property was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission on August 22nd, 2017. During this meeting, the applicant petitioned site distance waiver for the western entrance was a topic of discussion. The Planning and Zoning Commission deferred to the Department of Public Works, who is the approval authority for site distance waiver requests. A site distance waiver for both entrances was received by the Department of Public Works. On September 11, 2017, the Department of Public Works granted a waiver for the easternmost entrance. Again, that is this one here. Due to the site distance intrusions from the existing guardrail, the landscape, and the curvature of the roadway for the western entrance, the access was restricted to an entrance only, and that restriction was actually done by the owner. Landscaping is addressed via the existing vegetation between the site and Pleasant Valley Road, as you can see here, and also by the existing vegetation here that butts up against this residential dwelling. A landscape variance was approved on December 23rd, 2019 to remove the requirement of landscape screening along Pleasant Valley Road for the existing stone drive from the eastern entrance. So from this point back to the entrance is where the variance was approved. The floodplain ordinance will be addressed via a floodplain easement. A floodplain variance was approved on April 5th, 2017 to modify the maximum floodplain setback as required in the code. The requirements of forest conservation ordinance will be addressed by on-site forest retention. To comply with water resource code, the final site plan shows a variable width stream buffer. Approval was granted by the Bureau of Utilities and the Carroll County Health Department, and the Office of Public Safety has granted approval and stated a sprinkler system is not required for the proposed building. Stormwater management has granted final approval. Stormwater management will be addressed via the construction of level spreaders, which is shown here as well as back here, and an on-site permanent sediment trap / stormwater management facility. It's going to be this one here. In accordance with a site development plan memo from the Department of Planning, the proposed land use is consistent with the Carroll County Master Plan land use designation of agriculture, and all review agencies have granted final approval of the plans. So to give a better idea as to how the site looks now, here is some pictures of how the site looks from Pleasant Valley Road. You can see the existing guardrail in some of these pictures. And this picture down here is standing within the westernmost entrance. Again, here's some more pictures. This is looking back at the stream and floodplain area. This is the existing landscape on the western property line that butts up against this residential dwelling. This is the site and the landscape looking back onto the property from the roadway. This is the existing dwelling that resides on site. And this section here is where the landscape variance was granted, which meant they did not have to place landscaping in this area. This is the easternmost entrance. This is standing back on the road looking onto the site. This is the driveway that leads to the residential dwelling. And then to get to the site, you take this drive here, which leads you down this gravel aggregate onto the property, or I'm sorry, onto the site. And this is looking east and west on the roadway. And finally, this is the westernmost entrance. This is looking back onto the site, and this is looking east and west onto the roadway, Pleasant Valley Road. So again, as you can see with the landscape, the curvature of the road, and it may be difficult to see via the picture, but the guardrail, they were unable to meet site distance requirements for that. And so getting a variance was very difficult. And so with that, pursuant to Chapter 155, staff recommends approval of the site development plan subject to the following conditions. The developer enters into a public works agreement with Carroll County that guarantees completion of the improvements, that a stormwater management conservation easement be granted to the county commissioners of Carroll County simultaneously with a public works agreement, that a stormwater management easement and maintenance agreement be granted to the county commissioners of Carroll County as an easement of access to the county commissioners or authorized representatives by deed to be recorded simultaneously with a public works agreement, that a forested water resource protection easement be granted to the county commissioners of Carroll County simultaneously with a public works agreement, a landscape maintenance agreement be granted to county commissioners, a floodplain easement be granted to the county commissioners, a forest conservation easement be granted to the county commissioners, all simultaneously with a public works agreement. And finally, that any changes to this plan be required an amended site plan to be approved by the Carroll County Planning and Zoning Commission. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or I believe Mr. Limmerman or Mr. Bowersox could also answer any questions you may have.
This is Jeff. I do have I'm sorry, Richard, go ahead. I'll stand down, go ahead.
It looks to me like most of the issues have been resolved from the 2017 presentation. So I'm happy to see that.
This is Jeff. One of the questions I have, the owner of the property next door had raised some issues around landscaping. It sounded like from the presentation that there was not any additional landscaping. It's just whatever trees are there are going to serve as the landscaping. Maybe I misunderstood that. Is landscaping being added between this equipment storage yard and the neighboring property as an additional buffer above what's already there?
So that is actually a very good question. When this first came through to the Planning Commission and Technical Review Committee meeting, the landscaping that is shown that butts up against this property, as well as what runs along Pleasant Valley Road, was not there at the time. Through the process afterwards of receiving that, the property owner took it upon themselves to put this landscaping in that complies with the landscaping code. So none is proposed, but at the time of receiving that from the adjoining property owner, this landscaping was not in place.
In other words, after the adjoining property owner raised the issue, the applicant voluntarily installed the landscaping?
Yes.
So you understand, good morning. So you understand, Mr. Wooders, the property appearing adjacent to the site on the left side, if you will, of the drawing, that property owner is 100% supportive of this project. Wrote an unsolicited letter to the Board of Zoning Appeals in support of the hearing we had there in December. And he thinks Mr. Hagan is a great neighbor. I mean, you can take a look at the file and see for yourself. But it's a Mr. and Mrs. Judge. I don't believe they were the neighbors who were referenced as being concerned and curious about the landscaping in the prior matter. Just to clarify that for you.
And Mr. Bowersox, are you saying these folks moved in after that, or it was a different?
Who?
The judges that wrote the unsolicited letter?
They'd been there the whole time.
Do we know who the neighbor was that had raised the issue about landscaping and lighting? It sounds like the lighting issue is not really an issue because there really isn't any, but do we know who that was or where they're located?
John Lemmerman with RTF Associates, just chiming in. The house directly across the street is a rental, and there's no opposition with that house either. So I can verify that.
Hi, Mr. Walters. So looking at the sign-in sheet for the Technical Review Committee meeting that was held back in 2016, it looks like other than Mr. Bowersox, it looks like this property owner here was the only other one to sign in to the sign-in sheet. So although we don't have a definite name or any type of written correspondence from her, since she was the only other one, again, besides Mr. Bowersox to sign in at the meeting, I would imagine that she would be the one that voiced those concerns.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Amy, can you go back to the pictures you have of that landscaping, especially along the front, along the road? I mean, so you stated it's consistent with the landscape code, right? The amount of trees they planted?
That's correct.
So what's shown on the plan is basically what's there now.
That's correct.
But still, I mean, we are within our rights to potentially ask for more. Even though they're consistent, could we ask for additional screening? Because
Ms. Cheatwood, John Lemmerman again with RTF. These are arborvitae green giants. So these are going to be a extremely fast growing 100% screen wall, within a few years, which is more so than most screening is planted. And the reason why there was a limited landscape variance request was because there's no place else to plant landscaping and keep the site functional. It's squeezed in between all these, a list of 10 environmental easements. We have a steep slope, guardrail, power lines, and we're very limited on the site. So we've been 5 years to get to this point. We've done everything we possibly can to make everybody happy and jump over every hurdle that's in our way. So
yeah, I mean, you've got a very limited, you basically, I think, what is it, every single inch is being used that can be used is what it looks like?
yes, the owner actually had to downsize the building just to keep the site alive, to get through the process.
Yeah, and there doesn't seem to be a concern from the neighbor who's directly across. That looks like they're the ones who basically are looking right down into it.
The rental that Mr.
Yeah.
Lemmerman identified? Yeah. There's no opposition from them.
So this is Jeff again. It's interesting, Mr. Lemmerman, Mr. Bowersox, you all have done a good job here. It strikes me as interesting because this equipment storage yard seems to be a conditional use granted by the BZA, which then allows an accessory use to the conditional use. And then I've lost sight of the number of variances for site distance, landscaping, fire protection systems. This seems to be a project living out of exceptions and conditional uses, which, by the way, is fine. The law allows it. But this is a tough one. But I think that's why, at least I'm asking about some of making sure the neighbors are okay with this, because this is a long way from a principal permitted use in this area. But it sounds like everybody's on board with it.
So you know, Mr. Waters, in February of 2015, when we presented this case to the board, we went out of our way to be transparent with the board and with the neighbors about what the applicant's intentions were. All of this was disclosed. All of it. And it was approved. With the presentation of the other accessory things, we did that to try to avoid some of the marathon we were forced to go through anyway. And 5.5 years after the approval, there's suddenly a challenge to the accessory use. So, or a hearing to resolve that challenge. If you look through the file, and I'm not going to dwell on this, you'll see reports from various departments, including zoning, and nobody is mentioning the accessory use as an issue until September of 2020. So it's, you know, at some point, we need some finality here. And this is a clean site. Mr. Hagan has done everything that's been asked of him. Everything. So we would ask you for an approval of the plan.
I just would like to add real quickly that the purpose of this site plan also is so that he can construct a building on there. The building's purpose is to bring equipment inside and out of site to improve the site conditions as it is currently. And that's the owner's goal.
Also, if I may add, to kind of put your concerns, Mr. Walters, and the rest of the commission at rest, this meeting was posted on site. Postcards were sent to all the adjoining property owners, and we've received no phone calls or any correspondence of any type of anyone really asking about what's proposed or having any concerns being raised at that point. So with this property, with this project, this site being where it is, it seems like either everyone's okay with it. You know, I haven't had anything from any adjoining property owners come up through this process, at least since I took it over, which was back in roughly 2018.
I appreciate that. And I know, Richard, you want to say something. I just to close out my comments, I wasn't being critical, so don't take it that way. And I wasn't suggesting that you were anything other than transparent. It's one of those things where there are many hoops to jump through, and part of our job is to ask questions and make sure that the community's concerns have been addressed. And it sounds like they have. I don't know if anybody's on the call today that has any comments. I'll be interested in hearing what they say. But I'm not taking issue with Mr. Bowersock, your client, or your process, other than to say this is a long way from a principal permitted use, which means there are many hoops to jump through. It's been a long, expensive process, I'm sure, and it sounds like we're close to the finish line here today. Richard, I'm sorry I cut you off.
That's okay. Jeff did summarize quite eloquently, you know, all of the different issues. And getting back to my initial statement, this has been a controversial project for over 5 years. And to me, they have met all of the concerns. And so I have no problem with this.
Okay, it does look like we have 2 callers who have called in. So I'm going to open it up to see if we have any public comment at this time. So if anybody... Go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, my name is Harry Sellers, the Carroll County Farm Bureau president. I just have a couple comments on the community solar projects.
Okay, if you can hold up, we'll take that after we're done this site plan, and we'll open up your mic again for you to comment.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other caller on the line? It looks like we lost the other caller, so. It doesn't look like there's any other public comment on this.
Are you at 10 now? I thought you did check that when I asked you a while back. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Control room, can you mute that caller, please?
Okay.
Thank you. So it looks like there's no other comment. Anybody wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion pursuant to Chapter 155. I would recommend approval of the site development plan subject to the 8 conditions listed.
This is Jeff. I'll second that.
And we have a motion and a second to approve pursuant to Chapter 155 with the 8 conditions listed in the site report.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call vote if that's okay. Mr. Canali,
Yes.
Ms. Kirkner,
Yes.
Mr. Soyson,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
4 in favor, and the motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I think this actually ties into my thought of this is ag district, and it's not being used for farmland. This is kind of let's move in on. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. For the next 13, we do have a caller who wants to comment on the solar. So
Yes, I'd like to, my name is Harry Sellers, the president of the Carroll County Farm Bureau. And I'd just like to have a couple comments on the community solar project you're proposing.
go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I hope you all can still hear me. I have personally sat through 2 of these solar hearings, one with the Policy Development Committee for the Farm Bureau and again with the Ag Commission. And our biggest concerns are if we start one of these projects on ag land, you know, is it going to continue? Are they going to expand it? You know, I think it's a bad idea to even start these projects on ag land. If we could keep it limited to commercial zone property would be really good. So, you know, I look forward to hearing what other proposals maybe. But at the annual meeting of the Farm Bureau, the whole membership is in agreement that we should not even have that as a opportunity for solar on any ag land. You know, it's one of those things where if you don't start it, you know, we don't let them in the door, and then it doesn't carry on. So the policy right now and the stand is for the Farm Bureau is to not to have any community solar projects on any ag land. So, you know, I'm going to keep abreast of whatever happens there, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. So there's an interesting perspective too. So thank you for those comments. I don't think we have any other callers on the line.
Yes, I'd like to comment.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay, my name is Wayne Barnes, and I just termed out on the board for the Farm Bureau, but I brought this possible change to the attention of the board several months ago, and we actually met with several people from planning and zoning at our location. And one of the things that you have to remember also is that a lot of these are farmed. And we have members that are very upset with the potential of losing land to solar that they are currently farming. And matter of fact, I know one of them, one farmer, he rents all his land except for a few acres, and it could potentially put him out of business. Now he's over near Woodbine, but you know, there's another potential problem too that we're foreseeing for the future. I mean, the current Board of Commissioners that we have are fairly ag oriented and promote ag, but we have 3 members of our commission that are be termed out, and one other said he was not running, and the one remaining may or may not run, but we're concerned about having a whole new board that may be more development oriented than the current board. And we think this just opens up, you know, Pandora's box for further things to be done, reducing ag land. And we have very limited ag land in this county, and we do have problems with losing it to changes in zoning, the 1 in 20 rule, and all that. I mean, when you build houses or commercial properties, you don't tear them down and start putting in cornfields later. So we're already suffering creeping loss of ag land, and this is just another situation that has occurred that could make it progressively worse. So we come out definitely against this, and we're willing to look at anything else you want to show us, but anything losing ag land right now, we've only got, I think, about 140,000 acres, and in declining. And ag has been the largest, not employer, but income producing occupation in the county, not necessarily for the county. But my concern is if you put in things where you can get higher taxes from it, it may incent you to put ag land into something else. And there's a lot of pressure for solar. We're worried about solar companies coming in and pressuring the county in the future to put in huge fields of solar. And we have to preserve our ag land if we want to maintain this type of county. Thank you.
Thank you. And, do we have anybody else on the call who would like to make a comment? Okay. Interesting. So I think with that, that's the end of our agenda for our first meeting here in 2021. Our next meeting will be February 3rd at 6 p.m. It's a work meeting. So see you guys in a couple weeks. So with that, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn the meeting and see you guys in a couple weeks. Thank you.
See you, Richard.